Hey, chapter 2, the different kinds of real estate. Look, not all real estate is created equal. There are many kinds of real estate, and I want to quickly touch on them so when you're out doing your homework, people tempt you with deals, you can understand why I like just apartments and why I like them so much. First of all, there's the single family residence, or what's referred to as SFR. This is a type of property where a person should live, not where a person would invest. But a lot of people think they're investing in SFRs. You'll hear a lot of people talk about a home as an investment, but in reality, it's not an investment. It's actually a liability. Houses were created for banks to profit, not for people to profit. Houses were created as a place for people to live. And the story's told that you're saving money there by owning, not renting. Again, it's a mere trap. It's a trap of the middle class. Millions of people have been trapped in homes, unable to move, unable to be mobile, unable to go where jobs are, where the family's now forced to stay. Of course, the sale is a great sale. It's a great pitch. It's the American dream. It's the ultimate pitch. The American dream, where you and your wife, you and your husband, and the kiddos, and a couple of dogs will be happy forever. And then they justified it by saying it's an investment over long periods of time. You can die there, have the house paid for, which isn't true either because you have property taxes every year that will be due. Actually, a home is never even yours. Look, I understand you have to live somewhere, and I understand your argument it's cheaper to own than rent, but none of this is actually true. In fact, I would pay more to rent in a neighborhood than I would to own and not even feel bad about it. A study covered by CNBC suggests home ownership, this just came out in the last 3 weeks, home ownership is no longer a way to build wealth. In fact, it was never a way to build wealth. It may be a place to save money, but it's not a place to make money. And by definition, investment means I earn money for my investment, right? It goes up in value over time. It would exceed inflation, which, by the way, the house has not done. In fact, if you took the last 100 years and looked at home ownership, the average home in America has only gone up about 1% a year. Look, when you consider property taxes, upkeep, roof repairs, air conditioning, heat repair, insurance on a house, real estate fees, and opportunity costs of money, debt equity, $5 trillion is sitting in equity in homes being unused, not to mention your loss of mobility, a single family home. Don't shoot the messenger here. A single family home is not just not an investment, it is a terrible investment. Flipping or wholesaling. Now, this is a different type of typically single family home. It refers to somebody taking an SFR, a single family home, a front door, a one door, and improving that place in some way and then either reselling it either before you close because you sell the contract, not the house, or you take ownership of the property and then what you do is you improve the property and sell the home. This in reality is not real estate investing, but a form of speculating, or at best, another job, if you need another one, whereby the investor buys a single family home, improves it in some way, and then sells it to either the end user, homeowner, or an investor who then wants to turn around and rent it. Every wholesaler I've ever interviewed, every one of them, and I've met a bunch of them, even the most successful wholesalers or flippers I have ever interviewed ultimately say to me, hey, Grant, what I want to do is I want to do what you're doing. I want to own the apartments that pay me every month for long periods of time. Wholesaling could be a good vehicle, however, for getting the cash you need. Listen to me. Wholesaling could be right now a good vehicle for getting the cash down payment you need to start buying apartments. I'll tell you a story about a couple that came to me about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now, and said to me, hey, they had been flipping homes successfully with some cash they had. And I said, look, what you should do, and they said, what do you think about that? I said, I think the wheels are going to come off the flipping thing. I think that you're going to look up one day, the music's going to stop, you're going to have a couple of houses, and you're not going to be able to sell those. I said, I would be very, very careful at this part of the cycle. And I said, what I would do if I were you, I would put money into properties like I'm buying that produce cash flow every month, positive cash flow, and then you could sit and wait in and not flip. You don't flip them. You wait until somebody comes along and pays you a huge profit to be in that property because you bought a great location, you bought the scale, you have the number of units you need, and you're paying down the debt while you sit and wait. So, long story short, I convinced them to do this. In fact, they didn't just do the $1 million they had been turning, but they also took $600,000 out of a retirement account. They invested $1.6 million with me at Cardone Capital because they couldn't find the deals. If you go back and do your math, remember, $1.6 million will buy $5 million. Instead, they put the $1.6 million with me, $1.6 million, and they bought a $32 million deal, okay? I explained to them that the flipping thing would end. They believed that. They were starting to see the margins erode in the flip, okay? This is where they would buy a piece of property. They would buy a property, and what they would do is many times they would just get a contract on the property and then try to sell it to someone else. Well, that was getting harder and harder because there was more and more people trying to play this game. So then they were stuck with having to rearrange the deck, okay, make the property look better, paint it, roof it, do something to it that maybe the interior is different, and then bring it to the market. And they faced the reality that, Grant, we just have another job now. The wholesaling had become another job for them where they would cross their fingers, hope that they hadn't paid too much, hope that they had done the right thing, and now could find a seller. Okay? I convinced them to stop the game. Okay? They both had primary jobs in the entertainment industry. They were very, very busy people. They spent a lot of time in charity work, and now they had this job of wholesaling, fixing homes and flipping them that was taking a lot of time. They said, Grant, in Los Angeles, $1.6 million, at this point, they were just thinking about investing $1 million cash. $1 million would only buy a $3 million property. And I told them about a deal that I had that was $32 million, and they put the $1 million with me in this $32 million deal. That means their money had a 32x leverage, okay? They partnered with me in a deal. They also took $600,000 from a retirement account where I showed them how to self-direct their retirement 401k, and they put the $600,000 in there. They had $1.6 million put into a real estate deal that I knew we were going to keep for 5 years, 7 years, maybe even 10 years. We still have it today. They've earned 12% on their money, on that $1.6 million. A portion of it goes to their retirement account. Every month they get a check, and the other monies goes to their cash account every month as distributions. While they sit and handle their careers. They're no longer wholesaling, flipping, fixing, preparing, worrying. Every month they get a check, okay, invested alongside me. And what they don't know is I'm sitting there building equity up in the property because I'm raising rents. Listen to what I just said. I'm raising equity in the property and their investment with me because I'm raising rents, not because I'm fixing the property. Okay? And that is the difference between what a wholesaler does flipping homes and what a long-term investment does. We've been there 42 months now, I think, in that property. They've earned 12% on their $1.6 million. Do the math on that. Plus their investment, their equity portion, even after they pay me my piece to manage the deal, is probably worth $3 to $4 million, double or maybe triple what they invested. No headaches, no work, no problems. They're passive investors alongside me at Cardone Capital. So the wholesalers, all you wholesalers out there, I know that you want to be in the apartment deal at some point. If you're wholesaling right now just to create cash to buy deals, good, but make sure it's short periods of time. Single-family home rentals, okay, different than the flipping. This requires you find a house, fix it, and rent it to the marketplace. This requires collecting single-family homes in your market. Remember, the most important number in real estate is the number of units, so don't do one door like I did, big mistake. It requires you collect single-family homes in your market and then rent them out one at a time, keeping them for long periods of time, should be your horizon. And there was a rage, by the way, across the country decades ago where investors, including one of my uncles, actually, who was collecting homes in their market, typically in low-income neighborhoods called Section 8, government-subsidized properties. And the real estate investor would buy a home, fix it up a little bit and provide a tenant with an opportunity to either lease or rent there with an option possibly to buy it in the future. If the tenant missed a payment, they would then remove the tenant from the home and do that again. It was actually very, very smart. This is a combination of providing financing and renting. Okay, it's a cool. It gives the renter the illusion, the idea that, I'm going to own this one day. I can pay $500 a month, or I can just rent it and do the Section 8 thing and collect most of the money from the government. But this owner finance piece was, hey, you can rent from me. You have an option to purchase in the future. You get a little bit of money down from the tenant, and it gave them the illusion that one day they might be able to own the house. If they missed the payment again, you'd kick them out and do this again. This is a combination of providing financing and renting. In my opinion, it's not what I want to do. It's a little predatory. You're going in knowing these people, this is their only opportunity to own a home and, pitching that whole deal. It's not what I want to do. And I don't want to sell a story here. I want to own real estate that provides me with passive income, not more work. This requires a very hands-on owner. I'm not saying it's terrible. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but it demands tremendous attention, and it's very, very difficult to scale. You better be very tough to do this, by the way. You got to be tough, like outside and inside. And while this can provide big percentage returns, you're simply trading time, in my mind, and stress for a return. Another way to do this is to get involved in government programs, I mentioned this earlier, whereby the landlord focuses on low-income housing. In this arrangement, the landlord collects a portion of the rent money from the government, very dependable, supposedly, called Section 8, and a smaller amount from the tenant. So if it's a $500 rent, you might get $200 from the tenant or $300 from the tenant, $200 from the government, and it looks like a great deal. In addition, though, to this requiring, again, a lot of your attention, the upside appreciation of these types of properties will be held down or limited because the enterprise depends, the enterprise being the rental property, depends on the government for its revenue, and that will hold rents down. Okay, this is the lower end of affordable housing. When I talk about affordable housing, I'm not talking about government subsidized. I'm talking about you're trying to take care of people that make $19,000 a year. A relative of mine did this, collected affordable housing where he lived, and over the years, I think he collected 30 or 40 of these single-family homes. Each deal had to be closed separately. My first deal was 48 units, right? So he took 20 years to collect 30 homes. My first deal was 48 units. Required one closing, one loan, one address, and the government was not involved. I got to tell you, there's nothing about the government that I like much. I don't think you do either. I literally acquired more deals in one transaction, more doors in one transaction, more rent in one transaction than he had in, 20 years. I had to manage one property, not 48 properties, and when I sold the property, it was one sale, not a bunch of sales. Okay? And the top was never limited on that piece of property because the government was not involved. Let's move on. Duplexes and fourplexes, still not considered commercial property. This is a category of property type that consists of 2 and 4 units, duplex and fourplex, where the investor might live on the premises, live in one, rent the other 3 out. This is the kind of investing most people start with, unfortunately, because they're investing with a budget in mind rather than investing wisely. This is the easy way to invest and dumb. While you can do this with less money down, and while this is, by the way, the course that everybody teaches out there, almost everybody, while you can do it with less money down, while it's easier to do it, okay, it really is more like another job than it is investing. And it's got its limits on the upside. While everyone needs to start somewhere, look, you don't have to start in the wrong place. Start in the right place. I do not recommend duplexes and fourplexes for a lot of reasons. I do not recommend anyone start investing in duplexes and fourplexes. Let me tell you why. First of all, the most important number in all of real estate is the number of units. It is not the cap rate, the price, the return, the cash on cash, the GRN, the GPM, the GOI. It's none of those things. It is the number of units. Because the properties don't produce enough income, 2 units, no matter what the rent is, cannot produce enough income. Because the properties don't produce enough income, you will continue to be dependent upon your time and your energy to make a duplex work. And the real estate value depends upon cash flow. See, true future value in the future depends on location and the number of units. And that equates to cash flow. And location and cash flow determine value in the future. The loan you get on these 4 units deal is very attractive. Normally 3%, maybe no money. Okay, if you're a vet, you could probably buy this deal with no money down at all. Look, you've spent enough time, okay, over there, trapped, can't get out 3 or 4 years serving for the American people that you don't even know. Thank you for your service. But you don't need to come be trapped again over here in one single family home just because the loan was no money down. Just because it's no money down doesn't mean it's a good loan. Just because the interest rate's good doesn't mean it's a good loan. Listen to what I'm telling you here. The loan on 4-unit and 2-unit deals can never be good enough because you're trapped in a bad deal. 2 units can only produce so much income. 2 units can only produce so much return. 2 units will only be worth so much. 2 units cannot have a swimming pool, security, a gym. It's impossible. It doesn't produce enough income. That's why so many people make their first purchase a 2 or 4 because it's easy to get the loan. And it's not easy to get the loan because the loan's easy. It's easy to get the loan because the down payment is so little. People are lazy and they go for the easy thing rather than the right thing. Don't do this when you invest. The single family home, duplex and fourplexes occupied by the owner are the first properties to be lost in foreclosure or in economic downturns. Listen to me. These are the first properties that go back to the bank. Because when the economy gets bad, and it will, the investor doesn't have the money to continue to improve the carpets, okay, improve and paint the place, and landscape. When one person moves out of 4 units, you have 25% vacant immediately. Remember, that includes the owner renting one of the 4 units. So now only 50%, only half of the income of the property is covered. 2 people move out. Now you're at 75% vacant. 2 people moved out. You're renting one. The other person's the person you don't even want to live next to. Oh, they're the ones that always stay, by the way. The people you don't like the most are the tenants that stay the longest. All right, so let's move on to commercial property, where we're getting closer to the type of properties you should be investing in. This is called commercial properties. By definition, it's 5 units and above. But just remember, while fewer units appear easy, okay, and you're going to be encouraged by people, take baby steps. They're harder to keep long term and much more difficult to make money on. Why? Because fewer units reduce your economies of scale and will never allow for the property to produce enough income to warrant the work and attention involved. What do Walmart, Amazon, Facebook, Coca-Cola, Sprint, AT&T have in common? Scale. Lots of customers, okay? Many customers, not a few customers, okay? They sell lots of units every day, not just a few units. In real estate, the fewer the doors, the easier it may be to buy, and the harder it is to make money. So just remember this. The easier it is to purchase, the harder it is to make some money. This is why I say the deck is stacked against the little guy and why I created Cardone Capital. The big guys don't spend time and energy buying little deals. If you pay attention to them, they only buy the big stuff in great locations. So do the math on 8 doors, okay? 8 doors. You're limited on 8 doors to the math. This is the problem. It's not the rent. Okay, it's not how much you can raise the rent. You can only raise the rent so much in a marketplace. You can raise the rent and you can lower the rent. All right? This number will go up and down. This number can't change except for vacancy. This number can only get worse. It can never become 10. So that's the point of real estate. The most important number in all of real estate is the number of units. This is your scale. Without the scale, this number controls value in the future, okay? So $6,400 times 12 months equals $76,000. $76,800, I think, right? Is that right? I think it is, okay? Expenses and vacancy. 1/2 that. Okay, we're going to take 10% off of this in any market, maybe 15% off in any market for vacancy, and up to 35% for expenses. So $38,400 is estimated expenses. Now, I know you can find a deal where you can say, I can operate for less than that, but that's not the point. The cash flow before debt is $38,400 on 8 units. Is that right? Do I have the right math there? Okay, 8 units, $800 a month. If you're 100% full, is how much money is that a month? $6,400. Okay, $6,400. If you were full, it would be $76,800. You got to spend something on it. Well, I'm going to manage it myself. Okay, you could, but if you have a job that already pays you, and you're earning $50,000 a year at a job, okay, or worse, you're earning less than that at a job, you cannot afford not to pay attention to that job to pay your bills. And every time you pay attention to this, you can't pay attention to that other job. Okay? Your cash flow before any debt will only be $38,400. Let's say you got a $50,000 job, or worse, even worse, you got a $200,000 job. Why would you want to pay attention to $38,000 before debt? By the way, all this assumes that every unit is filled all year. Okay? You paid cash for the property. You have no debt. That means whatever this was worth, these 8 units, depending on what you paid for this property and what you can sell it for, exit, determines whether you got a good deal or not. If you paid $384 for the 8 units, okay? Let's say you paid $384 for the deal. I'm just making simple math here. And you earn $38,400 a year, you're earning 10% on your money. And you're like, man, I'm killing it over here. I'm making 10%. The bank only pays me a half a point. Okay? If you paid $768 for the property, by the way, that's much more likely on 8 units, about $90,000 a unit, then you're only making 5%. Okay? But here's the problem with this scenario. The problem with this scenario is you don't have a swimming pool, you don't have a security gate, you don't have a gym, and if the economy gets better, this tenant at $800 a month or whatever the number is going to at some point say, hey, I really would like to have a gym, and I'd like to have a swimming pool, and I'd like to have some new neighbors, and I'd like to have a parking spot. They're probably going to move out, okay? And they're going to go to a nicer property. And we're seeing that already happen, where people are wanting to go to bigger facilities where they get social life, where they get to gather and meet with other people, where they have a place or a park, or they can walk their dog, okay? If you paid $384, you got a 10% return. If you pay $768, you got a 5% return. But you're always going to have competition pushing on this deal. This is the cash flow that you receive while you wait, right here. While you wait for the property to go up in value. But the biggest problem here is what? I got 8 units to sell. Scale is your problem, and you can't scale this model. Yeah, you could go buy another 8-unit deal and wait for the real estate to create value for it, okay? For you to create real wealth in real estate, you need 4 ingredients, okay? You need, number 1, you need cash flow. And cash flow is determined by the number of units. Number two, if you want to create real wealth, you need time, okay? I need time in that deal. I don't want to be dependent upon 8 people if I need long periods of time. Number 3, I need a great location. And by the way, you could have found 8 units in a great location. I just bought 104 units in Boca. I don't like 100 units, okay? I like 300 units at a time. I bought 100 units in Boca. The location is so stupid. It's so ridiculous. It's so incredible that I know somebody's going to come by and say, we're going to scrape those 100 units and build 400 units there. Why? Because they're going for number 4, scale. And all the big boys and big girls, if you want to make big money in real estate, look for big trees and make sure the number of units has got scale. What am I talking about? 32 units. 8 units can only produce so much cash flow and will only be worth so much money to the next buyer.